With just over 36 hours left of the transfer window, ladies and gentlemen, and it is all hotting up. There is so much to talk about. There is so much to do in the world of West Ham. Tim Steidten is jetting off left, right, and centre. We have the Yuri Alberto, everything that's going on there with the Brazilian 22-year-old striker that we've been chasing over the last week or so. Lots of news about that. We have the latest in the chase for Hugo Ekitike, a forward from PSG that we've seemingly been interested in for literally years at this point. We have all of the latest on the concrete details of players actually leaving, especially one seems to be hotly tipped to be leaving and going out of the door. And potentially, hey, an England under-19s European Championship winner potentially joining the club. It's all very exciting, and it's the West Ham transfer rumours show, ladies and gentlemen. If there wasn't enough going on in the world of West Ham in terms of transfers, we also, of course, have the Luton match coming up. There will be a preview for that on this very channel later this evening, as well as the build-up show, watch-along, review, all of that good stuff coming back, making their long-awaited return. And by long-awaited, I mean we missed. It was one game, but we still managed to do half of those videos. But the big stuff is back, and then of course the Europa League draw, for the group stage is also happening tomorrow. It's all kicking off. It's going to be a very busy couple of days for West Ham United. So make sure to subscribe and hit that bell notification button so you keep up with it, because we're going to be here talking about it all. However, let's start off with the news of Yuri Alberto, shall we? Because that was the one that has been on everybody's lips. Tim Steidten has been in Brazil. He's been talking to the player, and as of 2 days ago, we had agreed personal terms with him. Seemed to be super effective getting Tim out there on the jet. None of that air traffic control. I don't know what problems there are in UK airspaces right now. I just know there's problems at the moment. None of that has affected him. My man's out there. He's talking to him. He got the personal terms done. But unfortunately, it seems like the club side hasn't gone well. We go to Darmesh, our friend, of course, at Sky Sports, who says, as things stand, West Ham are now unlikely to pursue a deal for Corinthians forward Yuri Alberto. Tim Steidten has been in Brazil for talks, but no resolution over price could be found. The Hammers have now walked away from a deal. Apparently, Corinthians are just adamant that they do not want to sell him. They don't want him to go, which you can respect, right? He's a striker who's done well for them. They paid quite a bit for him from Zenit St. Petersburg, as we spoke about the other day. While we've been in Brazil, we have been linked with other forwards. X has mentioned we've been interested in a couple of left backs that we offered from Brazilian clubs as well. She spoke about it in another video. I tell you what, instead of wasting our time now, I'll put that video at the end if you want to click on it there and find out a little bit more about all that stuff there. But since this has happened, since Yuri Alberto is now officially off, we haven't necessarily heard about us diving in on any of the specific other players that we spoke about previously in Brazil. But we'll see what happens. We've got 2 days to go. Tim's got a jet. Why not go down to Santos or Flamengo or wherever else in Brazil and just have some conversations. See what happens. He seems to be good to be talking players into the club, does Tim Steidten. But do you know what else is good? It's the OneFootball app, ladies and gentlemen. It's a beautiful, wonderful app that you can get on your phone right now, completely free. It's a beautiful way of catching up. It's the West Ham transfer rumour show. It's difficult to get all of these news stories in one place together. Do you know where it isn't difficult? You can just find it all on one app. It's easy. It just lists them off right there for you because you click follow West Ham as opposed to say, you don't want to know what's happening with, Tottenham. You don't want to know what's happening with Manchester United or any of that. No. You're interested in West Ham. So you click follow and then it's all there. Beautiful, lovely laid out for you. We're going to be using it tomorrow, of course, for the build-up show as well. That will be where we get the lineups for and all of that lovely stuff. We speak about it even when they don't sponsor us. The OneFootball app, ladies and gentlemen, it's free. You can download it with either the QR code that's currently on the screen or in the link in the description and comment section below. OneFootball app, check it out. It's a wonderful thing. As is Hugo Ekitike, at least pre-moving to PSG, which is when we wanted him. He had a huge breakout season, and then we were seemingly chasing him for a while. He ended up joining PSG, which is what it is. That's understandable, right? PSG are in for you. You want to go there. But unfortunately, if you are a forward, and especially a young one who isn't fully finished with his development yet, and you move to PSG and you're trying to fight for game time with the likes of, Mbappe, Neymar, Messi, it's going to be quite difficult. And he has certainly found it that way. And as I said the other day, he needs to leave there. He needs to get out of there. He needs to go to a different club where he can actually get game time. And we seem to be one who are fully interested. X said on his Patreon, patreon.com/The West Ham Way, of course. West Ham are now entering talks over both a loan and permanent deal for Hugo Ekitike of PSG. The striker has been a target all window. Sky Sports are saying that Hugo Ekitike is open to the idea of joining West Ham, and Darmish said something a bit interested here. West Ham want to sign both Yuri Alberto and Hugo Ekitike. It isn't one or the other. Now, of course, this is pre the Yuri Alberto deal collapsing, but it's interesting to me that we wanted both, which sort of signifies to me that our interest in this is very, very concrete. We've left it long enough, and PSG have tried to offload him. They've offered him about, the number has been quite high previously. I've seen numbers of 35 million doing the rounds, potentially even more. He is a young player. He's only 21, 22, something like that, with a good goal scoring record in the full Ligue 1 seasons he's had. So there is definitely value there. And when you look at how much certain players have gone for this summer, my God, 35 million for someone who's in the youth academy, who's in the youth teams for France and does well, has had a banging season in Ligue 1 before, has played for a club as big as PSG, you can understand where that sort of money, that sort of figure would come from. Having said that, now we've left it so long into the window, it might potentially be time where they would be willing to accept a lot less, and actually maybe even a loan to buy, which feels like it would be perfect in this situation. Because just because you fail at a club like PSG, and fail is maybe a harsh word to say, but maybe because you don't fully succeed and thrive at a club like PSG, that doesn't make you a bad player. Again, look at the competition he's up against. He's up against Neymar, Mbappe, Messi, some of the greatest players we've ever seen play football, right? It's not difficult to see why he wouldn't be getting loads of game time in that scenario. And so, you know, Memphis Depay, here's a player off the top of my head, right? He's someone who's done really well in France. He went to Manchester United when he was young, didn't quite work out for him, ends up leaving, fighting his way all the way up through France again, and then hats up at Barcelona because he's just that good. You know, just because you fail at a club as big as PSG, or don't succeed at a club as big as PSG, I should say, doesn't necessarily make you a bad player. And if we were to get him on a loan with a view to buy, for example, especially if it's an option to buy as opposed to an obligation, whatever, but an option to buy, that's kind of the perfect scenario. The one problem for me is it would mean he'd be standing directly in the way of Mubama. However, having said that, that could give us the opportunity to loan Mubama out to potentially a top championship club where he can get game time every single week in, week out, playing senior football, potentially even a Premier League club. You can't tell me Mubama isn't good enough to at least stand a chance at starting at certain Premier League clubs. I think that could be really good for his development. And if getting in someone like Hugo Ekitike on loan could give us that opportunity to grow Mubama, he comes back next summer. Danny Ings has already gone by that point. Mikel Antonio potentially leaving or on his last legs. Bang, in comes Mubama. I think that's a really good thing. I'm up on this one, but it does depend on the deal in place. We'll see how it goes. Let's move on to another person we've been linked with. I'm going to breeze over this because I'm not sure quite how I feel about the link. I'll explain it after. But Filip Kostic has come back up over at Calcio Mercato in Italy. They have said West Ham have returned for Filip Kostic. Returned because obviously we've been linked with him many times before, both while he's been at Juventus, where he is currently, and Eintracht Frankfurt before, where we faced him and we were chasing him for a good long while. The issue is the time remaining, but Juventus are open to sell him for 15 million euros or negotiating a loan with an option to buy. It is actually Juventus and Kostic's agent who have contacted West Ham about a possible deal, and exploratory talks are now taking place to try and agree a deal before the deadline. Shout out to West Ham Central, by the way, who worded all that stuff. I don't know if I believe this. It feels a little bit like a recycled rumour. It would make sense. I think it has seemed likely that he was going to leave Juventus this summer. It would make sense that if he has been trying to get away and we're coming up to that deadline now, we're coming up to the end, that he would potentially be thrown our way by agents and whatnot, just to say, hey, he's available, you know, if we could get a good deal over, and 15 million euros is definitely a good deal for Filip Kostic. And although he would be one of the older players we would have signed this summer, we've seen with James Ward-Prowse, who's basically the same age as Kostic, that actually, if you can get a player on a good deal and he comes in and plays a really important, solid role for you, I think that's a great transfer. 15 million euros is definitely good transfer territory. He's someone who could play on that left wing, you know, somewhere where we've seen struggles this season. He could come in on not necessarily a 5-year deal, for example. It could be a slightly lesser long deal. And that way, when David Moyes goes, if the next guy's not fancying him, it'd be easy enough to move on because we wouldn't have paid too much for him and he wouldn't be on a super long contract. He could, in theory, cover the left back spot, although he's more of a left wing back Kostic definitely than left back. It would scare me slightly. But I think there's enough versatility there to make this a really interesting transfer. And if we are looking for someone to play that role on the left, especially with the next thing I'm about to say, I wouldn't be against it. However, like I say, it does feel a little bit like a recycled rumour. None of the big hitters have mentioned it, just Calcio Mercato at this point. So we'll move on. One of the things that has been one of the big hitters, ex-West Ham employee, again, patreon.com/the West Ham Way, Maxwell Cornet. Everton, Burnley and Nottingham Forest have all expressed an interest in signing West Ham forward Maxwell Cornet. Everton boss Sean Dyche signed the 26-year-old for Burnley and is said to be keen on a deal. Would make sense. We've heard rumblings that Everton are also interested in Danny Ings, for example, at the moment. They are obviously in dire straits right now, and anyone who they can come in and rejuvenate, get goals, that sort of thing would make sense. And I think Maxwell Cornet would do really well in that position. Whether he would actually want to go to Everton or any of these clubs would be a bit different. He'd obviously get paid a lot somewhere like Nottingham Forest, Burnley. It would be interesting to go back to where he was, now back in the Premier League. Everton, his old boss, who he thrived under, would definitely get game time there. But it would be interesting if he would take a step down from a European club to go somewhere like that. It's difficult with him because obviously we have such a difficult job with numbers right now. We're at the limit of the squad size. We're at the limit with homegrown players. So losing someone who isn't homegrown would be kind of beneficial if we still want to sign people and do a couple of deals in the next 36 hours or so. He's not vital. He's not going to get that much game time. He kind of comes on for 2 minutes, gets 5 offsides. You know how these things go. But realistically, right, he's not going to start, is he? And it makes it really difficult. And in that sense, if we could get some money for him, it wouldn't necessarily be a bad deal, especially if we could recoup what we paid for him. That might not be a bad deal. I wouldn't want to see him go necessarily. I think there is more to come from Cornet. But if him leaving facilitates us getting someone who could be a more important member of the squad, then I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing, especially if we recoup the money. But it's one to keep an eye on links over the next 36 hours or so. And then let's talk about Ronnie Edwards of Peterborough United. The 20-year-old centre-back won the European Championships with the England under-19s. Very highly rated, been linked to a lot of Premier League clubs for a while now. He has, apparently we're very interested in him. Sky Sports saying West Ham have made an initial approach to sign defender Ronnie Edwards from Peterborough. The 20-year-old was part of the England under-19 side who won the European Championship last year. The League One side is expecting him to leave. He was left out of their last matchday squad. They are fully expecting him to leave. We are initiating talks. We've sent apparently a bid across. It will be something to keep an eye on. We've obviously, the links of Harry Maguire bubbled back up again, although they weren't too believable to me. If we could get this for a good money, if there was good money involved, I would be very for this. Again, with the homegrown thing, that's always difficult to do. Getting in someone of his age who could grow into the centre-back roles, given the fact that we have two very injury-prone people in Aged and Zuma. We have someone who's old and relatively injury-prone in Ogbonna. We have someone who potentially wants to leave in Tilo Kehrer. This could be a really nice option, to be honest with you, with all those things. Actually, if Tilo Kehrer was going, for example, and we replaced him with him, I'd be very, very happy. I'd be very, very happy indeed. I like our centre-backs that we have in the youth academy right now, but it's clear they're not quite ready yet. And also, this is someone who has literally been playing first-team football, senior football. Sure, it's not Premier League level, but that doesn't necessarily make him a bad signing. I would be for this. I would be definitely for this if the prices are right. And the fact that he's been left out of the matchday squad, clearly they expect him to be on his way out. There seems like there could be a deal to be done here. Whether it's with us or another Premier League club is yet to be seen. However, if we're initiating talks, if we're getting involved, if we're sending in bids, it feels like we're at least going to be in that conversation. A conversation that is going to be on running over, like I said, the next 36 hours. We will be back later on. Actually, I'll tell you what, there's one other story, just very quickly. And I just want to mention it. It's not necessarily to do with West Ham right now. It's to do with Jamal Baptiste. Former West Ham Youth Academy player, if you don't know, left at the beginning of the summer. Basically, it always felt like he was going to be the next big deal. He's been compared to Rio Ferdinand. He just never really got the game time. He was never really playing for the first team. He sort of tended to disappear. He came out when he left and spoke to, I think it was The Athletic, spoke about having muscle problems and how David Sullivan really helped him. And actually one of the few really hugely positive stories we've seen about David Sullivan over the last 10, 12 years, however long he's been at West Ham at this point, speaking about how much David Sullivan helped him and went to his personal doctor to try and get him the help he needed with the muscle problems he had. Fabrizio Romano has said that Manchester City are on the verge of agreeing a deal with him. Baptiste will join on a free transfer, being told medical and contract signing soon. And I just wanted to bring it up because he was someone who, it was a shame when he left. We had such high hopes for him. He left by mutual consent. He's obviously going on a free transfer to Manchester City. And I genuinely do hope the best for him. It was one of those people who everyone spoke about in such high regards. And it was a situation which clearly didn't work at West Ham. Hopefully by going to a club where he can get the best coaching possible, potentially the best medical team possible as well. I really do hope he goes on to do good things. Genuinely, it's just a quick one, not really necessarily anything to do with us, but there we go. Jamal Baptiste. What is to do with us is the preview for the Luton match, which will be going up on his channel later on this evening, so make sure to come back for that. Hit that bell notification button as you subscribe. If you do, just push it, smash it, volley it, do like a Craig Dawson, Che Adams head kick of the subscribe button and hit the bell notification button so you don't miss out on that, and like the video because it helps us out massively. We'll be back, of course, again tomorrow. There's so much going on. Deadline day, the Luton match itself, build up, watch along, review, and then, of course, the Europa League draw. It's all kicking off, ladies and gentlemen. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out on any of it. And I shall speak to you soon. Enjoy yourself. Come around. See you later. Bye.